You, the mighty Fengdu Emperor, ruler of the underworld, have been chosen by a supernatural gem representing the Dragon Kingdom in a national survival contest.
While other players are busy trying to please the NPCs.
The NPCs are desperately trying to survive you. It all started 5,000 years ago when you transmigrated, becoming a lowly ghost enforcer in the underworld, along with a sign-in system essential for any traveler. With the system's support, you crushed demons with your bare hands and kicked nine-tailed beasts aside,
rising from a nobody to the very peak.
Just as you hit the 5,000-year sign-in milestone, you finally obtained the coordinates for Blue Star, ready to return home. But the moment your feet touched the soil, a voice suddenly echoed across the entire planet. Greetings, everyone in the 361st home main universe. The rule-based horror game begins in 10 minutes. Each nation will select one player to participate. Survivors will be rewarded.
Those who die will bring horror upon their nations.
After each player dies, their nation will randomly select a replacement. Good luck. A playful glint appeared in your eyes.
Feeling the sudden descent of spatial rules,
you didn't resist and let it take you. To think there are actually fools daring to drag me, the Fengdu Emperor, into a game of rules. Elsewhere, Dragon Kingdom officials stared tensely at the screen.
The dim sky was filled with black, falling ash.
Several old houses, looking like they'd been abandoned for ages, stood silently in the gloom. Then, the players from each nation appeared.
Their faces were filled with confusion and fear.
But you were the exception.
Suddenly, a sinister voice echoed.
Greetings, players. Each of you will receive different tasks.
You must complete them within 1 day,
or you will die.
Those who survive will get a chance to draw a special ability.
Good luck. Meanwhile,
the players received 3 different letters.
Each letter had a few short lines written on it. Deliver these letters to Old Wang, who loves TV, Grandma Li, who sits at her door watching the sky, and the house at 502. You lazily raised your eyelids, wearing a meaningful smile. You, having hidden your aura to return home, never expected to be dragged into such an interesting mess.
As you were lost in thought, the player from Shark Country spoke up first.
Fellow players, my name is Amun. I can guarantee a 76.33% survival rate if you join me.
Hearing this, the other players looked shocked. Because this man had won the Nobel Prize 3 times,
known as the smartest human in history. Overwhelmed, the players didn't hesitate to stand by Amun. Only you stood there all alone.
Amun looked at you with a strange light in his eyes,
as if calculating something.
He said in a deep voice, Dragon Kingdom player,
if you're willing to join us, I can boost your survival rate to 92.17%. Not interested. Get lost.
Your cold eyes held no emotional fluctuation.
After saying that,
you turned and walked alone toward the eerie town.
This move of yours
not only baffled the players in the horror world,
but even left your own citizens confused.
Amun pulled his gaze from your back,
and said in a low voice,
to ensure our survival in this world,
everyone, please show your letters. We can gather more information as compensation.
If you show me a letter,
I'll prioritize helping you deliver it.
As Amun finished speaking,
the player from Shrimp Country hesitated,
then handed over one of his letters.
Amun read it quickly, handed it back, and said, go. I will keep my promise, and deliver yours first. Meanwhile, you arrived in the eerie town.
Suddenly, under a flickering, broken street lamp,
a pale figure holding a newspaper appeared.
You were less than 2 meters away from him. Then, with the next flicker, the newspaper ghost stuck right in front of you. A flash of killing intent crossed your eyes. The pressure of the Fengdu Emperor erupted.
How dare a mere ghost be so insolent?
With those domineering words, the newspaper ghost's face showed terror, as if he were the one who had met a ghost.
You will pay for your ignorance.
His body rapidly turned into white mist, and the newspaper in his hand dropped to the ground.
You obtained newspaper ghost's paper. Note, the paper records some interesting things. Does anyone want to read it?
The paper lay calmly in your hand,
not daring to move a bit.
The live broadcast scene
left everyone in a strange silence.
What they saw exceeded the Dragon Kingdom's understanding, even more intense than the game itself.
Just as the outside world was in an uproar,
you found your first delivery stop.
Under the dim light,
a blurry figure was inside the window.
He was hunched over, sitting on a sofa watching TV.
But there was nothing on the screen, only static and electrical buzzing.
Yet he watched it with great interest. At this moment, in the Dragon Kingdom Shitrim, is that old one's house? The one who loves TV?
The flickering TV.
That weird figure. This is too creepy.
I think the ghosts in this town are ranked.
Look, the newspaper ghost didn't have a house. He only appeared with the lights. Old Wang has a mansion and a TV. He must be a tough character. Yeah. Amun and his group have figured it out. Just throw the letter into the house, and the task is done.
Don't be stupid enough to knock on the door.
Asterisk bang. Bang, asterisk, a violent knocking sound echoed.
The static in the house seemed to pause for a second.
You knocked directly on the door, and with a terrible attitude.
The Dragon Kingdom citizens gasped in horror.
Big brother, this is the horror world. Why are you acting like you're at home?
From the perspective of the Dragon Kingdom citizens, they clearly saw Old Wang slowly stand up
and walk toward the door. With the citizens on the verge of a breakdown,
the door opened. Who is it? The blurry figure hid in the shadows.
Your mail. Your tone was cold. You pulled out one of the letters and handed it to the shadow behind the iron gate.
The shadow didn't take the letter,
but made a strange sound. A mailman? A new mailman already?
The shadow said something cryptic.
Do you want it or not? You said, sounding impatient. The shadow behind the gate was taken aback, as if he didn't understand why this mailman
was acting so arrogant.
I'm a ghost. You know, a human dares to act like this?
The shadow laughed in anger,
saying bluntly, boy, I want the letter, and I want you too.
The TV ghost suddenly lunged from the shadows,
reaching out to grab your neck.
Suddenly, he hit an invisible barrier,
let out a scream, and scrambled back.
With a look of sheer terror, he shouted,
what are you? You're not a mailman.
You finally lost your patience. You shoved the letter into his pocket, then raised your palm,
and slapped him across the left cheek.
The TV ghost's head spun 360 degrees before snapping back into place.
The TV ghost, having been slapped,
was completely stunned.
He hadn't even realized that he had actually been hit.
How could you hit me?
The TV ghost shouted in disbelief.
You sneered and slapped him again.
This time, the TV ghost's teeth shattered, falling all over the floor. This brutal scene left the Dragon Kingdom citizens terrified. Everyone had the same question.
Who is the real ghost here?
The one being hit doesn't dare to fight back. The player is acting like a ghost, running wild. You have invited death by offending me.
Your cold gaze cut like a blade across his face. The terror on the TV ghost's face was palpable. He trembled and nodded repeatedly, afraid that if he was late, he'd get another slap. At the same time, he felt immense regret. I should have just taken the letter. Why did I have to provoke this monster? I can give you 50 ghost coins. The TV ghost said quickly. You narrowed your eyes. Wait, I can also give you the TV as compensation. The TV ghost jumped, hurriedly adding, that's really all I have. By the time the TV ghost finished that sentence, he was on the verge of tears. Delivering mail until you're bankrupt? That's a new one. Ha ha ha. Old Wong who loves TV lost his TV. So now he's Old Wong who hates TV? Look at the bright side. Maybe he never wants to see a TV again. The Dragon Kingdom citizens couldn't help but laugh. You obtained Old Wong's TV. Note, the TV has no picture, only static. Who knows what he was watching every day? If you turn it on, you might discover something else. You obtained 50 ghost coins. The hard currency of the horror world can be used to exchange for what you want. Not bad. You're quite sensible. Thank you for using the delivery service. Looking forward to serving you next time. You smiled slightly, and the killing intent vanished. The TV ghost sighed in relief, forcing a stiff smile, but cursed in his heart. You want it next time? I never want to see you again in my life. Meanwhile, Alman and his group were also moving. They arrived at the Shrimp Country player's delivery spot, but right in front of them, only an old, lonely red phone booth stood there. They didn't see the owner of the letter. The Shrimp Country player said nervously, Mr. Phone Booth, this is where I'm supposed to deliver it. Almond stared at the red phone booth, saying calmly, go ahead. The Shrimp Country player took the letter, stumbling toward it. He quickly opened the booth door and threw the letter inside. But just then, a terrifyingly eerie phone ring echoed, and inside that old booth, a blurry man appeared out of nowhere, his pale hand gripping the ringing phone. The moment he picked up the receiver, the Shrimp Country player collapsed to the ground. At the same time, a scream of ultimate terror came from the phone. Park Jong-hyun is dead. Horror has descended. Elsewhere, you were standing in front of a retro house. This was the home of Grandma Lee, who watches the sky. In front of the rusty door, a pink sofa sat quietly, but the empty sofa was rocking rhythmically. Deliver the letter to Grandma Lee. Note, Grandma Lee might mistake you for her grandson. Please play along. This is the professional code of a mailman. Compared to Old Wong's letter, this one had an extra instruction. Play along as her grandson? A smile curled on your lips. You took out the letter for Grandma Lee and said coldly, your mail is here. The rocking sofa paused for a moment, but then started rocking again. You stepped forward twice and pressed down on the rocking sofa. You repeated, your mail is here. This time, the sofa wasn't empty. An old woman covered in age spots appeared. She sat quietly on the sofa, staring blankly at the sky. Hearing your second repetition, the old woman twisted her stiff neck, her dead fish eyes staring at the letter. Good grandson, you're here to deliver the mail? The old woman said, her voice stuttering, as if something was stuck in her throat, making it hair-raising to hear. You slapped her across the face, your eyes cold as you said, do you think you're worthy of calling me grandson? The old woman was spun 180 degrees by the slap, a rare flash of anger in her dull eyes. Did I never teach you to respect your elders? With the old woman's chilling words, the sofa seemed to come to life, writhing toward you. A look of disdain appeared in your cold eyes, as if you were looking at an ant. You waved your hand lightly, and a scorching flame appeared in your palm. The flame radiated a terrifying heat, making the old woman on the sofa shudder. What is this? How do you have ghost fire? The old woman said, terrified. Fear was clearly visible in her dead fish eyes. My body, it's absorbing me. The old woman tried to stand up in fear, but you pressed her back down. The property of this fire was to absorb ghosts. I was wrong. Please, let me go. The old woman trapped on the sofa shouted anxiously. Under the burning of the fire, her body was becoming nearly transparent. Didn't you want to turn me into a sofa? Why aren't you telling me to respect my elders now? You said with interest. I'm willing to compensate you, mailman. Each letter is only worth 1 ghost coin. I'm willing to give you 20. Hearing this reward, you were a bit surprised. After all, this wasn't mentioned in the task. Am I, the great Fingdu Emperor, being treated like a delivery boy? Very well, I'll note that. You smiled faintly. The heat increased once more, accompanied by the old woman's screams. No. Take all my belongings, the sofa, the ghost coins, and this sofa. 2 pounds of meat from the factory, all for you. The old woman frantically pulled out her ghost coins, handing them to you with trembling hands. You took the compensation and finally withdrew the fire. Counting the coins from Old Wang, you now had 130 ghost coins. Ghost coins can be used to exchange for items. What about ghosts? You thought, testing the system. You shouted into the void. I want to trade a ghost. Ghosts cannot be traded. Please choose other items. Hint, newspaper ghost, TV ghost, and sofa can be traded. You looked coldly into the void, as if staring through the ashen sky, at something hidden. The outside world didn't know your thoughts. They only knew you wanted to sell the old woman. Is that even possible? It's over. Others go to the horror world to survive. My brother goes there to go shopping. The old woman heard your words, breaking into a cold sweat. What does he mean? He actually wants to sell me? Who is the real ghost here? Get up. You're sitting on my personal property. You stared at the old woman. She forced a stiff smile and struggled to stand up from the sofa. The whole process was so difficult that even the Dragon Kingdom audience couldn't help but laugh. Grandma, stop watching the sky. Go exercise. If you don't, you won't be able to walk. You're going to kill me with laughter. You told the ghost to go exercise? Ha ha ha. You obtained Grandma's sofa, an exquisitely crafted sofa infused with heart's blood. When you lie on it, you can even feel a warm touch. You obtained Meat Factory Meat Rolls X2. The meat factory in this town is a household name, highly praised by every family. As everyone knows, the meat from the factory is always the best quality. You nodded in satisfaction and stuffed the letter into the old woman's hand. Looking forward to serving you next time. Goodbye. Then, you looked at the last letter left. A thought crossed your mind. House 502. The first wave of tasks from the horror will gave 3 letters. The first 2 had some level of improvement. Why is this last one just a house number? You looked up at the ashen sky, wearing a smile. If you weren't mistaken, this was the trick of the horror will. Is he looking at the sky? Is there a problem with the letter? The Dragon Kingdom netizens were confused. In fact, regarding many of your actions, they never understood. But they supported you. Even with these insane operations, the trust the Dragon Kingdom netizens had in you had reached an unprecedented level. You know nothing. He must have his reasons. Just watch, a netizen replied. Do you understand?
I don't, but I am deeply impressed. The confusion wasn't limited to the Dragon Kingdom. In fact, all viewers on Blue Star were confused.
Because they didn't understand why Amon was heading to the meat factory.
Is there any connection? Renault looked confused, subconsciously scratching his head. The other players were also blank, not understanding the connection at all. Blue Star's moment of confusion. On one side, the lone wolf. On the other, the sheep. We are the melon-eating spectators. Some netizens joked.
Damn Dragon Kingdom guy. Get off our network. Why so angry?
Maybe you'll be begging to be a Dragon Kingdom citizen later. Ha ha ha. Oh, my god. I swear I'll curse him with the dirtiest words I know. Show us. I'm your father. Ha ha ha.
Inside the horror world, I think everyone has seen it. Our task is called 3 letters, but the addresses are all different.
And this town, while seemingly ordinary, is full of strangeness. For so long, has anyone seen the same scenery? Almond's eyes scanned the group like a sword.
The players were stunned, then began to recall.
From the moment they finished discussing outside and entered the town, they hadn't seen a single identical building. Even as the environment changed behind them,
they hadn't noticed anything wrong.
Was the path behind us lie this? The White Elephant Country player swallowed hard,
fear in his eyes,
pointing to the path behind them. The houses were still old and rustic,
but they weren't the ones they remembered. The other players were horrified. Such a strange thing.
And they had only just noticed it. Even Renault had cold sweat on his forehead,
looking at Amon with awe.
You. Renault wanted to say something, but Amon interrupted him. From the moment we stepped into this town,
I noticed it.
But I didn't tell you. Unknown fear would only make you collapse faster.
But now I choose to reveal it. To tell you one thing.
We have reached the point where we must fight. The time limit is 1 day, but 3 hours have already passed. Fearing the ghosts and not finishing will kill you. Delivering mail triggers unknown rules and will kill you.
My deduction might be right.
Or it might be wrong. But if it's right, our survival probability is high.
If it's wrong, then I'm sorry. We will all die here
before the day is even over.
Please open your panels and check your current status.
Amon said this heavy news calmly.
The players were panicked,
hurrying to open their panels. When they saw the striking red text,
their pupils shrank to the size of pinpricks. Ghost erosion in progress.
Player HP, 73%.
When did this start?
The players were in disbelief. They knew there was nothing on the panel at the start. Then when did you realize the town was wrong?
Amon asked them calmly.
The players were silent. If that was the case, the erosion had started the moment they stepped in.
According to my calculations, for every hour we stay here,
our HP drops by about 9%.
So, while the task says 1 day, we actually only have 11 hours. If we can't get the ability draw before the erosion is complete, we will all die, Amon continued. Every time he finished a sentence, the silence among the players grew heavier, until it became deathly quiet.
Asterisk clap. Clap. Asterisk suddenly. Crisp applause broke the silence.
So much so that it was dead silent. Suddenly, crisp applause broke the silence. Everyone looked up, eager to see the deduction. Wawujue was leaning against his bicycle, watching Armin in the crowd with a faint, cryptic smile.
It's the Dragon Kingdom player. The players from other nations recognized Wawujue. After all, he was the only one who refused to join at the start, so everyone remembered him vividly. Get lost. He didn't want to join before, but now that there's trouble, he wants to hop on board? As if that's ever going to happen. The Japanese player shouted in a rage. Noisy. A flash of red light flickered in Wawujue's ink-black eyes. The next moment, the Japanese player exploded into a mist of blood, drenching those beside him in a crimson veil. Noisy ants are as fragile as rotting wood. Over thousands of years, there have always been such ridiculous ants trying to offend me, and all of those ants have already turned to dust. Japanese player Yamamoto Taro is dead. Random horror event triggered. That mocking broadcast voice echoed in everyone's ears once again. But this time, the will of the horror gem swept its gaze over Wawujue, though it quickly dissipated. This sudden turn of events left both the players inside the horror world and the people watching on Blue Star in a state of eerie SOC. How on earth did he do that? But Japan probably doesn't have time to be shocked. The moment Yamamoto Taro died, countless human head balloons began floating over Japan. Each balloon wore a twisted, eerie smile, as if waving at you, inviting you to come and play. We meet again. Hello, Mr. Hua. Unexpectedly, Armin didn't show much surprise. Blue light flickered in his eyes. Wawujue smiled slightly, parked his bicycle there, and slowly walked toward the players. What are you doing? Renault's voice turned sharp, and he instinctively stepped back, his eyes filled with vigilance and fear of the unknown. If his opponent were human, he'd be confident enough to face anyone. But the sight of Yamamoto turning into blood mist was truly shocking. He couldn't even comprehend how it was done. This man, known as King Arthur in the human world, felt as small as a speck of dust in the face of such power. Quiet down. Renault, I don't think you want to follow in Yamamoto's footsteps, Armin said calmly, stepping forward as well, to stand before Wawujue. Wawujue stared at this guy with interest, showing a rare hint of appreciation. Staying calm even when Mount Tai collapses before you. This kid is actually a talent. I need 50 of you to help me verify something. Wawujue stated his needs flatly. Fine. Armin agreed without hesitation, leading the players from other nations in SOC. What do you mean fine? Are we supposed to go to our deaths? And 50 people? That's nearly 1/7 of all the players here. Good. I like dealing with smart people, because it saves me some trouble. Wawujue nodded. So, will you decide for yourselves, or should I decide for you? Wawujue used an unquestionable tone, scanning every player present, and those he scanned felt a chill deep in their hearts, piercing straight to the bone. At that moment, a sense of despair emerged in every player's mind. It's bad enough dealing with the horrors here. Why are the players so terrifying too? And they arrived in the same batch. Does that mean they didn't pay for a power-up? As for resisting? The exploded Yamamoto was the best example. Not only did he die, but his country also suffered a horror event. No need, I'll pick them for you. Armin shook his head, then turned to the crowd. Undoubtedly, this was a job that would make many enemies, but Armin didn't care. He needed to maximize the data, or rather, minimize the damage to the human world. The 50 candidates were chosen quickly. High efficiency. The selection principle was very pragmatic, even cold. The 50 countries with the smallest populations, over 300 players, everyone except those chosen, accepted this principle. The selected players looked like they were mourning their own deaths, their eyes filled with the ferocity of gamblers. No one knew what the Dragon Kingdom player wanted them for, so they might as well fight now. They had 50 people, after all. Why them? Just because their countries have fewer people? Because only this way can the losses from the horror event be minimized. Armin provided the answer, but these people clearly didn't agree. You devil. God will curse you, bastard, I'll kill you. It was ironic. No one dared to hate the source of the event, Hua Wujue, but they all turned their hostility toward Armin. Get lost. Otherwise, I don't mind letting you die right now. Renault stood firmly in front of Armin, blocking the players who wanted revenge. The other players also spontaneously protected Armin. They couldn't fight Hua Wujue, and without a direct conflict, they didn't want to cross this strange guy. As for Dr. Armin, he was their only hope for survival. Enough. Hua Wujue didn't have time for this farce. He snapped his fingers lightly. The air seemed to fall silent. Those 50 people looked as if their souls had been pulled out. Their pupils dilated, their expressions went numb, and their bodies stiffened, devoid of any life. The players watching gasped in unison, their fear of Hua Wujue deepening. Only now did they understand why Hua Wujue didn't choose to team up with them at the start. Because he had no need for a team. With just this ghost god technique, the delivery mission was probably a piece of cake. Why bother squeezing in with this bunch? I believe we'll see each other again soon. Hua Wujue glanced subtly at Armin's chest, got on his bike, and left with his 50 experimental subjects, vanishing into the town, making it impossible to track his location. As the last figure disappeared from their sight, the surroundings returned to a deathly silence. The atmosphere was incredibly oppressive, even more so than when the Korean player died. 50 people, not a horror attack, not a delivery trial, but taken away as lab rats by a fellow player. While the remaining players felt lucky, they also felt a sense of indescribable humiliation. We're all players, so why is he so strong? You don't need to be discouraged. If we survive today, we will also possess such abilities. Armin shook his head and said to the players, why does he have that ability? Has he already finished delivering 3 letters? Renault asked, frowning. Clearly, they had realized this was the ability the horror will mentioned earlier. But doesn't that ability require 3 letters to be delivered before you can draw it? Could it be that he's already finished? The truth was right before their eyes, but they couldn't believe it. If it's true, how did he do it? Park Younghyun from Korea only touched the phone booth and triggered a horror manifestation, and their delivery missions all required entering the place where the horror resides. How could he do it without triggering the horror? No, he hasn't. He still has 1 letter left. Armin shook his head. How do you know that? Renault frowned even deeper. Since the game started, Armin had been with them the whole time. How could he know Hua Wujue's progress? That's irrelevant. Armin didn't explain. Fine, it's so cool if you don't say it, but I need to know how he got that ability. Renault's expression turned serious. If they were all just players at the start, there was still some sense of security. But Hua Wujue's appearance broke that balance, especially for someone like Renault who is sensitive to power. Any opponent stronger than them would be their primary concern. Why do you assume we are the first batch of players? Armin asked back calmly, his light blue pupils staring at Renault. Renault and the players behind him changed expressions instantly. Outside the lone pavilion, by the ancient road, the grass is green. Hua Wujue, while riding his bike, unconsciously started singing. The old bicycle, lacking lubricant, made a creaking sound from time to time, which actually kept time with his singing. But such a scene, in the eerie, gloomy horror world, seemed completely out of place, especially with 50 walking corpses following behind his bike, making the scene even more bizarre. Geez, I didn't know Brother Ju had this hobby. Lop it. The lyrics are simple, but he sings quite well. Hey, are you guys missing the point again? Shouldn't we be concerned about why he needs 50 players? Why should we care? We're just here to watch the show. We wouldn't understand anyway. Why do I feel like the guy above makes sense? And Japan is ridiculous. Daring to provoke Brother Ju. That's a guy so tough that even ghosts would slap themselves twice upon seeing him. Dealing with that small fry is a piece of cake. As the saying goes, heaven's sins can be forgiven, but self-inflicted sins are fatal. The words are fine, but I think some of Japan's specialties should be salvaged. Manual laughter. Dragon Kingdom Supreme Strategy Room. Japan actually wants to ask us for help. Have they lost their minds? At the conference table, a burly dragon general laughed out loud. And the other generals couldn't help but smile. Oh, I can't take it. General NIE, look at Japan's request for help. Manual translation. We are neighbors separated by civil war, always living in harmony and friendship with your country. Even if there were occasional friction, it was trivial. We believe that in this time of crisis, your country will surely be willing to lend a hand. We will also forgive the unreasonable behavior of your players in the horror game. General NIE stared at the request for a while. Then the corners of his mouth curled up, finally breaking into a loud laugh, his back bending over, having to wipe the corner of his eye with his finger. Generals, how should we reply? Ignore the shameless wretches. It's the Chaoyang residential area. How did our son become like this? Hua Wujue's mother kept her eyes glued to the live broadcast, her brows furrowing and smoothing out from time to time. Could it be our family actually has some inherited talent? Hua Wujue's father was also hesitant to speak, a belly full of questions taking root in his heart. During the 2 years he was gone, did our son manage to unlock an inherited family talent? It is said that 18 generations ago, an immortal appeared in their lineage. He always thought it was just a cheat to read a fool children, but it turns out it might actually be true. The people of the Dragon Kingdom don't know what's going on, but he does have a reasonable guess. Legend has it that his ancestor, Hua Outyen, was a cultivator with heaven-reaching abilities, who later ascended to another realm. The era was so long ago that, other than the older generation telling it as a sheet to read, he hadn't taken it to heart. But now, with the sudden appearance of the horror gem and his son's unique abilities, he had to take it seriously. If it's true, could the old ancestor actually feel it? Hua Wujue's father suddenly had this thought. When Hua Outyen ascended, he warned his descendants, if no outstanding descendant appeared, he would never return. But if one did, he would return personally. Inside the world, Hua Wujue stopped his bike and left it by the side of the road, thoughtfully not blocking the sidewalk. This scene made the Dragon Kingdom audience sigh. He's actually a pretty good guy. Hua Wujue parked the bike and cast his gaze around. The gloom and horror remained unchanged, but the architectural layout was quite different. One street, one house, with streetlights lining both sides, without exception. These streetlights were all broken, flickering with a green, ghostly light, making one's skin crawl. The Von-Clove ghost mentioned Ghostfire earlier. Is there a connection to these streetlights? Hua Wujue's gaze darted across the lights. Wherever his gaze landed, the Ghostfire seemed to be frozen in place, not daring to move an inch. Interesting. I hadn't noticed, but this stuff is actually excellent nourishment. Hua Wujue's mouth curled into a smile. He laughed. He hadn't noticed before, or rather, he hadn't bothered to care. But looking at it now, the bulbs of these streetlights were made of flames constructed from pure horror matter. This would be perfect feed for his Jinyan. Whoosh! Jinyan shot out from Hua Wujue's palm. Compared to the size of a palm earlier, It had now grown to the size of a watermelon.
Hua Wujue sighed with emotion.
Most flames are basically fixed the moment they are formed.
To get an upgrade,
Unless you devour a flame of the same rank, it's very difficult to improve. That's why, for ranked flames,
the order rarely changes, because when two different flames merge, a brand new flame is formed,
and the previous flame is no longer the same.
But Jin Yan is different.
As long as there is horror energy to devour, it can grow without limit. In other words, if the underworld didn't need to suppress those powerful horrors
to nourish the realm,
Hua Wujue would have long ago tried to break down the horrors in the chaos sea to let Jin Yan grow.
Let's start with an appetizer.
The main course will be here soon. A bright light flashed in Hua Wujue's ink black eyes as he watched Jin Yan move along the streetlights, devouring them.
In no time, this area went completely dark.
The streetlights on both sides failed completely as they lacked the foundation for their flickering. Looking at Jin Yan, which had swallowed the pure horror energy, it was now the size of an ostrich egg.
Jin Yan conveyed a sense of wanting more, then obediently hid itself away.
Although it wanted to devour this entire place, every blade of grass, every brick, every tile, it didn't want to let go of anything related to horror, as it was all rare, delicious food. But at the same time, it understood that its masters could not be defied. The owner of room 502 was a bit reclusive.
Doesn't lie seeing strangers?
Often locks himself at home to conduct small experiments, and this was the only time in the 3 letters that the word careful was used,
as if it were foreshadowing something. The moment the streetlights on both sides went out, a red light out of hell,
suddenly flared up from room 502. The sudden change made the hearts of the Dragon Kingdom citizens tremble. Everyone's gaze was swallowed by that red light, unable to look away.
But there is always an exception. That eerie red light failed to affect Hua Wujue, a low-level trick. Hua Wujue gave his assessment.
The red light was just a mental ability. The operating principles might differ slightly, but they were largely the same. One uses spiritual power. The other uses horror energy.
Hua Wujue looked at room 502,
a signature smirk hanging on his lips.
This was a warning from the reclusive owner.
He was extremely protective of his territory.
The reason this reclusive owner was angry
was probably because the streetlights had been extinguished. No one knew why there were so many streetlights on both sides, or perhaps someone had arranged it that way on purpose.
Now the culprit was angry. But ironically, even in his anger,
he still adhered to his territorial concept, not easily stepping out of room 502, just wanting to use the soul-snatching trick to lure the hateful mailman inside. As you wish. Hua Wujue knew it was a trap.
Yet he chose to enter.
But he didn't enter with his row of lifeless players. Instead, a tall man walked out of the group,
his eyes numb, walking toward the room glowing with eerie red light. This seemingly cautious move left the Dragon Kingdom netizens stunned.
Holy crap, did Brother Ju change his personality?
He's actually using a lab rat? It feels so unreal.
I vaguely remember the miserable state of the TV ghost earlier. I don't think it's necessary that Hua Wujue is right. This ghost is likely trying to verify something through this method.
Alright, stop blabbering. Just watch Brother Ju's operation.
Screw you, why are you acting so high and mighty? Good grief, they're even fighting in the chat.
Just as the netizens were arguing,
the player stepped onto the grass in front of room 502.
The moment his right foot touched it, an unexpected change occurred.
He vanished, disappeared without a trace,
as if he had never existed.
He vanished right before the eyes of over 1 billion viewers, and the eerie house with the red light remained the same,
which only made it more terrifying. If the horrors they had seen before
at least required a trigger to kill. What kind of ghost was this, causing someone to vanish? The netizens fell into confusion and bewilderment.
They didn't know much about horrors, their only knowledge coming from Armin's side.
Because Hua Wujue treated those hideous, terrifying horrors
like mere passers-by. They couldn't stir up any waves,
and the horror of the ghost was downplayed in the netizens' hearts.
But at this moment, they regained their fear of the horrors. Because no one knew who would be picked next. However, some people noticed something wrong.
Look, there's no horror event in the White Russian Nation yet.
A netizen pointed this out.
Previously, whenever a player died, whether by a ghost or another player, a horror event would always trigger as promised.
The only difference was
that the former was more predictable than the latter. Really, there's no horror event in their country.
What happened? Did the horror game have a bug?
No.
Do you think there's a possibility
that the player isn't dead yet?
But that doesn't make sense.
I just checked the White Russia feed, and the screen is already black.
That's clearly a sign of death.
It's strange. Maybe because there are too few people.
The horror doesn't bother to descend? That's naturally impossible.
The horror game doesn't care about population numbers. Even in a country with only 1 person, the horror still descends.
The strange thoughts of the netizens came from their first contact with the horror game. As time passes, they will gain a deeper understanding of this scam. It was just as expected.
Hua Wujue's eyes flashed with gold, and with a wave of his hand,
1, 2, 3, 4, until the 50th.
Everyone vanished eerily, just like the first player, not leaving a single hair behind.
But it wasn't that there was no change at all.
At least not for room 502. The red light was slowly fading, and darkness was reclaiming the street. The street lights on both sides made a buzzing sound, like an old TV searching for a signal.
Very suddenly, at the end of the street,
a ghostly youth appeared, riding the same style of bicycle.
But the youth's face was as pale as a corpse, and his eyes were nothing but whites. Hua Wujue's focus, however, was elsewhere. On the ghostly youth's shoulder, he carried an old-fashioned shoulder bag, bulging as if stuffed with many things.
And on his chest, there was a badge. Ghost Pot Office, Nie Haisheng. Nie Haisheng's appearance caused a huge stir in the outside world. Many in the Dragon Kingdom recognized this guy.
Because 112 years ago, a mailman
had sacrificed himself to deliver precious intelligence. This is a hero of the Dragon Kingdom. How could it be him? In the Dragon Kingdom's Supreme Strategy Room, the oldest General Nie trembled his lips.
Tears welling up in his cloudy eyes,
staring intently at the ghostly youth on the screen.
Compared to the general public,
General Nie felt not only SOC,
but also a deep, profound grief, because this youth was his father. Compared to ordinary people,
Marshal Nie felt not only SOC,
but more so a deep sorrow, because this young man was his father.
The other Dragon Country commanders frowned. Nie Haisheng's appearance made them realize something.
Perhaps this wasn't the first Strange Tales game, but his arrival defied all logic. The rules state, if players die, the horror descends. Yet Nie Haisheng died while delivering intelligence. Why would he appear in the game? Everyone was completely baffled, lost in the face of the unknown. Only one person understood it all, and felt a tower
overpowering, boundless rage. Inside the Strange Tales world, Hua Wujue, having verified his theory, saw his ink-black eyes turn a violent red. He stared fixedly at the eerie youth on the bicycle. There is no wind in this world, yet his black robe fluttered violently, accompanied by an invisible pressure, crushing down upon the entire realm. The streetlights on both sides were the first to suffer. Though the old lampposts were rusted, they were incredibly sturdy. At least, they were in this world. But suddenly, the iron skin peeled off like snowflakes. Then they collapsed with a roar, shattering into a pile of debris. The calm road began to crack. Mossy walls started to tremble. The red light from House 502 glowed hotter than ever before. But this time, it was out of fear. Warning, unknown entity intrusion detected. Warning, unknown entity intrusion. Above the ashes, the will of Strange Tales suddenly awakened. Its massive will surged with eerie power. The collapse of the world briefly slowed, but only for a fleeting moment. The collapse continued. The will was struck with immense SOC. Terror filled its consciousness. How could such a power appear here? Is this not the primordial universe? Where did he even come from? The will was both shocked and enraged. It controlled this gem entirely. Yet now, it could only watch it crumble, utterly powerless to stop it. So, it chose to attack the source. Dragon Country players violated rules, initiating PNTI. The prompt echoed in everyone's ears. Their minds went completely blank. Why? Our players haven't even died yet. Why the PNTI? The Dragon Country public fell into panic and rage. Some even started cursing Hua Wujue. It's all his arrogance. He must have broken some rule. Damn him for dragging us down. Public sentiment is fragile, especially after seeing other countries' tragedies. They were terrified. If the horror descends on them, who is right or wrong no longer matters. The result is all that counts. They were going to pay for his mistakes. The Dragon Country screened at this moment. On the other side of the gray world, Almond also noticed the anomaly. Violating rules? Blue light flickered in Almond's eyes. He seemed to be deep in thought. Hua Wujue heard the prompt and laughed coldly, but those who knew him understood. This was a sign the Fengdu Emperor was furious. This gem had been harvesting souls all along, and sending them to another primordial plane. His homeland was being used as a farm, and now, they were openly slaughtering. Very well. Very well. Strange Tales world to be purged. Dragon Country players lose qualification for this round. The prompts continued. Pressure mounted around Hua Wujue. The entire world's will was crushing down on him, trying to turn him into dust. But the moment it touched Hua Wujue, a majestic dragon's roar shook the heavens. A massive black dragon appeared. Its body seemed to fill the sky. Scales like ink, eyes burning with scarlet. It stared silently at the will. A throne appeared beneath Hua Wujue. He sat upon it. An aura that defied the heavens pushed everything back. With a hint of disdain, he pierced the void, staring directly at the will's essence. The will faltered. Its terror grew even deeper. This isn't a mortal. This is a primordial emperor. This was far beyond its ability to handle. Must send information back. Before the will could act, Hua Wujue raised his slender hand and pointed. As if piercing through space, he froze the will in place. Damn it! The will realized it was trapped, unable to do anything at all. How could this human be this terrifying? Even a primordial emperor shouldn't be able to suppress it like this. Respected guest, why are you attacking us? The will chose to negotiate, especially emphasizing the guest. You just tried to kill me. Hua Wujue's eyes were like ice, piercing the will with cold dread. The will felt a sudden tightening. It wanted to explain, but it was too late. Souls to the heavens, spirits to the abyss. Netherworld springs, I am Fengdu. With these curse-like words, the will was rapidly erased, replaced by a brand new will. The will of the Fengdu Emperor. Ridiculous, the will still wanted to negotiate. Little did it know, in his eyes, ants have no right to negotiate. The collapse of the world stopped. All the horrors in the world felt it. While trembling in fear, they felt something was different. Dead, their master had changed. Strange Tales game corrected. Dragon Country player status restored. The prompt sounded again. Still the cold voice of the will, but this time, it had lost itself forever. The game couldn't end yet. He had other uses for it. The master just needed to change. The Dragon Country screen lit up again, amidst the anxiety of the crowd. Hua Wujue's face appeared on the screen once more. Great, our country is safe. Woohoo, I knew Brother Ju would win. It was just a bug earlier. Wonder who was cursing so loudly just now. Your skin is thick enough to circle the planet. Get lost. You're so annoying. The Dragon Country shook off its fear. Cheers erupted everywhere, but they forgot how they had cursed just moments ago, as if their safety was earned by their own efforts. But not everyone was so ignorant. The 5 dragon commanders saw a flash of gold. In the short time that passed, they had already ordered national martial law, and finished communicating with Taoist sects, ready to join the game if needed. They weren't without a fighting chance. Now that the game had suddenly changed, Hua Wujue must have played a key role. Who are you, really? The commanders were more curious than ever. Inside the world, let's go, time is running out. Almond looked at the calmed town. The blue light stopped flickering. He led the group toward the meat factory. He said nothing about the recent disturbance, even though Renault wanted to ask several times. Almond just shook his head slowly. We are just players. Survival is our only gone. Renault hesitated and nodded. Indeed, they were just players. Whatever happened in this world, let the game handle it. It had nothing to do with them. On the other side, Hua Wujue stood before House 502. Everything around had returned to normal, except for the 50 players standing under the streetlights. Hua Wujue didn't rush to act. Instead, he sighed. Then he walked up to the ghost mailman. Nie Haisheng. You'll be fry soon. A flash of clarity crossed Nie Haisheng's hollow eyes. He stared intently at Hua Wujue's face. 502 is dangerous. After saying that, he returned to his dazed state, took a letter, and threw it into the front yard. Then he rode his bike into the void and vanished. Watching his back for a long time, Hua Wujue casually threw his third letter in front of House 502. The letter vanished just like the others. 3 letters delivered. Task complete. The owner of 502 is satisfied with your service. You will be provided with a small item. You have obtained a rusty saw. The guy in 502 often uses various items for experiments. This is one of his common tools. Be careful not to let others see it. It will cause panic. After the letter was thrown into the yard, the 3-letter task was finished. A rusty saw appeared.
Hua Wujue looked at the saw and tossed it into his storage basket. Congratulations to the Dragon Country player for completing delivery. Ability extraction unlocked. Random ability extraction in progress. Task complete. You have one chance to extract an ability. Error. Error. Extraction failed. Error. Error. Extraction failed. Lie static from a corrupted signal. The game's operation stalled again. And this time, Hua Wujue corrected it himself. Correction successful. Congratulations to the Dragon Country player for obtaining Pingdu Emperor. For player privacy. The extraction prompt was not broadcast in the game. However, it was not hidden from the outside world. Holy crap, Pingdu Emperor? What kind of ability is that? I have no idea. I thought it would be a deduction ability. I expected something like time reversal. Now I realize I was too conservative. Will he summon Oxhead and Horseface? Type 1. I want to know what it does too. Doesn't it met his outfit perfectly? Wait, you guys, do you think the ability is based on the outfit? Maybe. Alright, stop spamming and just watch. After correcting the gem, Hua Wujue had a better idea. The 6 paths grinding wheel is destruction. That's easy. The hard part is not letting them cut the trail. Perhaps I can continue this gem, but the gem needs to change. The original gem served the eerie primordial universe by projecting games into various sub-universes. It harvested souls in control. It was a gradual invasion. Lie this gem, though it's the beginning. Every player death creates a projection in their country. Normally, the primordial barrier blocks energy invasion. The gem is a way to bypass this. Lie parallel universes corresponding to each other, yet not affecting one another. The gem is the bridge between them, connecting two unrelated things. Players are the carriers of this connection. It looks like a gem, but it's actually a one-sided slaughter. The will never intended for players to finish. The information given was ambiguous, yet technically correct, because that is the price of their projection. The price of crossing the barrier is 100% adherence to the rules. Even so, inexperienced players trying to survive in this dangerous gem, it's not just 1 in 10, it's 1 in 10,000. By the time the gem reaches the end, the planet would be covered in horrors. When no more players can enter, the gem truly ends, and the planet becomes another carrier for them. A good plan, but they only pick on the weak. I can imagine, if this gem descended on the underworld, it would collapse instantly. I wouldn't even need to move. Any of the 10 Yama kings could crush this place into powder. But I have to admit, this method is clever. Even with such weak power, conquering these universes is easy. If they hadn't run into me, this gem might have actually succeeded. That almond is interesting, but he could never finish this rigged gem. Since they can create a gem, why can't I? Hua Wujue observed for a while, and confirmed one thing. The gem is replicable, and this way of controlling universes is viable. But my gem won't be child's play. The underworld's billions of ghosts can be put to use. Those guys are just sitting around anyway. This could save me a lot of time. I want the primordial universe. I want the others, too. Compared to their gem, I have a unique advantage. The 6 paths grinding wheel can break the barrier. Even if it's just a crack, I can send more power through. At least those below Ghost Emperor level can pass. Those eerie ones can't do that. They can only use these dark methods. But through conquest, I have already controlled nearly 100 universes. Right now, I see a much broader horizon. The gem needs improvement. The other universes need to be conquered. This is definitely linked to the Chaos Sea. After some thought, what would you have decided on his next move? I'll play as a player to improve the gem and understand it better. It won't take much time. Once the grinding wheel enters, I'll start the modifications and trace the cosmic beacon back. Lock onto the eerie primordial interface. Daring to plot against the Pingdu Emperor's home? If I don't paint the world red, if I don't turn it upside down, my rage will not be quelled. Player Pingdu Emperor Hua Wujue, you have completed the first stage. You may rest. Do not wander the town. Otherwise, you'll invite unnecessary trouble. After the delivery task, you won't be teleported out. You must stay here for a full day. The new round starts tomorrow. So, what is in this town? Hua Wujue stretched his body. He scanned the area. The cold, eerie auras were like frightened birds fleeing far from him. The houses with lights on suddenly went dark, as if afraid to catch his attention. Hua Wujue smirked. He chose a direction and started walking. The horrors in the opposite direction breathed a sigh of relief, watching his back with trembling hearts. As for House 502, it vanished after he left, as if wiped away by an invisible hand. Only the bloodstained foundation remained. This is the meat factory. Renault looked at the sign in SOC. He couldn't believe it, and neither could the others. All the players were stunned, except for Amun. It was called a meat factory, but it was no different from a ruin. Bricks were scattered everywhere. Only the dark factory building smelled foul. The only intact structure was half the gate. Everyone hesitated about going in. They followed Amun here, but didn't expect this. The town's buildings were old, but still recognizable as buildings. This factory was clearly a ruin. Wonder who did this. You have arrived at the meat factory. Warning, the owner is furious about the damage. Do not anger him. This message popped up in every player's mind. It hadn't appeared before, as if warning them of something. Are we still going in? Renault frowned at Amun. Debt. Amun nodded and added one more thing. This is our only chance. The players hesitated, still unsure. They didn't have the delivery addresses. Why risk entering this factory? They were briefly persuaded, but now that they were here, no one wanted to go in first. It was hard to do. Amun sighed at the hesitant crowd. When we entered this gem,
We had a sense of direction for everything, except for the pod office. It's not that it doesn't exist, it's that we can't reach it. Renault frowned deeper. What do you mean? Even without the location, we are holding the letters. After entering the game, its Laia map was embedded in our minds. We have a sense of direction for everything, except for the pod office. Does that matter?
They were holding deadly letters. The players were thoughtful but confused.
What does this have to do with the task? If we don't finish the task, we'll all die here. What are you trying to say? You never explain yourself clearly. I suspect you just want us to die. A player couldn't take it anymore and shouted his question. Almond's previous deduction had convinced them, but they hadn't seen any real hope yet. The chaos grew. Calm down, listen to him. Renault blared at them. The aura of King Arthur successfully calmed the players down. What I want to say is simple. Give the letters to the pod office. Let the person who is supposed to deliver them do it. Amon said calmly. But to the other players, this was even more confusing. Aren't we the ones supposed to deliver them? Why give them to the pod office? Who is the person supposed to deliver them? The question surfaced in everyone's mind.
The outside world was also deep in thought. Dr. Amon means to find the real messenger.
Someone realized the problem.
They were given letters at the start, but it never said they were the messengers.
Once this thought occurred,
the world was in an uproar.
Great, as expected of Dr. Amon, to discover the problem so quickly. That's great. This way, as long as we give the letters to the pod office, everyone's task can be completed. Wait, no, how can they guarantee the real messenger
will deliver them in time? Right, the excitement was doused with cold water.
The players in the game gradually realized what Amon meant. But still, how can they guarantee the letters will be delivered before they lose their lives? Because this is a strange tale scam. Amon answered them simply.
The players were skeptical,
but they couldn't help but believe him. Right, this is a strange tale scam.
Nothing is normal. This might be the key to breaking the game.
Amon is right. They had no other choice.
The players' eyes gradually firmed up.
Before that, there was one last question. Why would entering the factory help us reach the pod office? Renault and the others' gazes focused on Amon's face.
Their eyes filled with expectation and tension.
At some point, they had become dependent on him. At least on the surface, Amon had no reason to harm them. It's simple. The letters were sent from the meat factory. We return the letters to the factory, and the factory will naturally go to the pod office. The rest is none of our business. The initial idea of delivering them was wrong. We were never the messengers. But by acting as messengers, we were naturally killed by those horrors. Because we were never the messengers. Amon gave the answer.
The last of their doubts vanished.
But this isn't absolute, so I still need someone to try first.
Amon poured another bucket of cold water on them. The players looked at each other.
No one wanted to be the one to try.
Amon remained unmoved,
watching them quietly. I believe in you. Unexpectedly, the one who entered the factory was Renault, who stood by Amon. Renault cast a meaningful glance at Armin. Then, he stepped toward the meat factory. Armin remained indifferent along the way. Many decisions were made only with Renault's help, without any other conditions to restrict them. Force is always more controlling than words. If something happened to Renault, all his subsequent arguments would be empty. Players from other countries wouldn't trust Armin. Their alliance would collapse in an instant. Renault slowly headed toward the meat factory. The hearts of players worldwide were in their throats. They didn't want Renault to die, because that would mean the most viable path was blocked. One step, two steps. Armin's light blue pupils remained calm. She watched quietly as Renault approached the factory.
She watched as Renault stepped through the gate and vanished as if he were air.
Renault is dead. Sorrow appeared in the eyes of players worldwide.
A sense of despair filled their surroundings.
No, he's still alive.
Armin shook her head.
The death broadcast didn't sound, which meant Renault had already succeeded. Yo, the old man's TV is actually quite good. At the TV Ghost's home, Lao Wang looked awkwardly at Hua Wujue in his seat.
He wanted to say something, but ultimately didn't speak. The screen, once filled with static,
became exceptionally bright at this moment.
And what was being broadcast inside was the location and status of these players.
Mr. Postman, haven't you finished delivering the mail? Lao Wang asked cautiously,
fearing he might anger this terrifying star.
Right, the mail is delivered, so I'm free now. Hua Wujue nodded, staring intently at the screen. Lao Wang's mouth twitched.
His original subtext was,
"You finished, so why are you waiting in my house?" The horror game.
As natives, they naturally understood a bit about it.
He wanted to get angry. He wanted to show his dignity as a ghost.
But seeing Hua Wujue, he felt like a deflated balloon. His usual tricks had all become a joke.
Honestly,
when Hua Wujue brought the TV to his house and plugged it in, demanding he turn it on, Lao Wang had even felt a bit smug
because his killing rule was turning on the TV.
When Hua Wujue was delivering mail,
he hadn't done that.
He just thought he could handle this kid himself.
After all, doesn't electricity cost money? So Lao Wang readily plugged it in and turned on the TV. But absolutely nothing happened.
Lao Wang thought something was wrong,
so he used an excuse to turn it off and turned it on again. But still, nothing.
This time, cold sweat soaked Lao Wang's forehead.
Vaguely, he felt that if he dared to turn it off again, he might disappear from this place.
Turning his head, Hua Wujue was smiling at him.
After this, Lao Wang didn't dare have any other thoughts.
He could only pray for him to leave quickly.
If possible, forget about leaving the TV behind. Just take the TV away too. Lao Wang hadn't forgotten this TV was his life-saving money.
These little guys dare to provoke Zheng Papi? Lao Wang seemed to have discovered something incredible. He stared at the screen without blinking.
Zheng Papi? Hua Wujue glanced at him.
Zheng Papi is the owner of the meat factory. He's not to be trifled with, Lao Wang explained.
A meat factory? Do you raise animals here? Hua Wujue was thoughtful. Lao Wang gave him a meaningful look. Dr. Armin, aren't you going in?
Players from all countries saw Renault go in, and there was no death broadcast.
They were instantly energized, but there was still some hesitation. Disappearing meant the mail was returned.
The task was completed directly, and they had left the horror world.
This final hesitation vanished under Armin's words.
For these players,
Nothing was more important than being able to go back. The lack of information meant these players didn't realize one thing. Even if the task is completed, you won't be teleported out. The horror game only ends the moment you die.
However, there were still some players who remained calm.
There were about 4 or 5 people watching around Armin.
They looked at this doctor, their eyes filled with suspicion.
Everyone else went in. If going in meant completing the task, why did Armin, who discovered it first, not rush and lie the others? It was because of this reason
that these players didn't rush and lie the rest.
Because I want to participate in the next stage of the game.
Armin rarely showed a smile.
The next stage of the game? Didn't you say we'd be teleported out after going in?
The remaining few looked confused.
You don't need to know.
Armin shook her head, and under their gaze, said something inexplicable.
Please settle the payment. What payment? The few remaining people frowned. Intuition told them there was a problem here, but they couldn't figure out where. The public in the Blue Star countries were also confused. Payment? What does that mean? Were the players who just went in the cargo?
This thought had already appeared in their minds.
It was life feeling a chill,
running from their feet to their scalps, but none of them dared to say it first. The remaining reason in their hearts told them
there must be some misunderstanding.
There was no death broadcast,
and no horror descent. But they probably forgot one thing. The people Hua Wujue used for experiments also disappeared.
There was no death broadcast,
no horror descent.
But they were truly gone.
Inside the horror world, the dilapidated meat factory.
After a brief silence, a voice like a throat burned by hot coals spoke. It sounded like a demon's whisper.
Oof, what payment? Get lost immediately. Otherwise, don't think about leaving.
The owner of the voice was the meat factory owner, Zheng Poppy.
You received a total of 276 people from me. According to the rules, you must pay me.
Armin said calmly.
At the other end of the voice,
Zheng Poppy was silent for about 2 minutes, before saying reluctantly,
how did you find out?
As his voice came out, 3 ghost coins with a value of 1 appeared in Armin's hand.
It was easy to find out.
The letter is just an attachment. We, the messengers, are the content. Therefore, no matter how we look for patterns,
as long as we get close, we die. It's unsolvable. And you are the owner of the meat factory.
Anyone can calmly accept our content, but you can't. Armin smiled slightly.
Why?
The owner of the voice said viciously. At the same time, in the shadows of the factory,
an ugly man,
covered in huge abscesses slowly appeared.
That height of nearly 2 meters made the audience feel double discomfort, both visually and physically. And Armin's next answer made them feel a bone-chilling cold. The consignor doesn't have to pay for the cargo,
because they paid the money to the meat factory.
And this money didn't originally belong to you. But you accepted cargo that didn't belong to the meat factory, and you swallowed this money alone. We honestly go to deliver mail. Every time one dies, you truly gain SA. But if we come to you, and you accept us, you must follow the rule of paying. Because we are not cargo.
Only when you truly accept it is it cargo.
And to receive cargo, you must pay. As for the target, it was all orchestrated by me. I think the factory owner should understand better than I do. Armin's light blue pupils gazed at the factory owner's ugly face.
It's hard to imagine what that ugly face was feeling.
After a long while, he said silently, you're right. Take the money and get out. 3 ghost coins are enough for you to complete the task. Not enough. I want the reward I deserve. 1 ghost coin. Armin refused. 3 ghost coins are less than its actual value. He will still die.
The meat factory owner's murderous intent flared up,
as if his secret had been exposed.
His face twitched and he roared viciously.
Leave now.
You can have my friendship.
I guarantee your mail delivery won't have any problems. But if you don't leave,
you'll become my cargo. Just lie them.
Please pay the reward.
Armin ignored the factory owner's threat, even though the other party had already reached her.
Are you not afraid of death?
The meat factory owner's ugly face was almost pressed against Armin's.
I won't die.
Armin kept her smile,
as if nothing could make her light blue pupils fluctuate.
The meat factory owner soon gave up.
He had more opportunities. Bastard, you win. I will pay you the reward.
The meat factory owner turned his head away angrily. 10 ghost coins with a value of 100 appeared.
This is my bottom line. You know very well that if it exceeds this amount, I'll kill you even if I have to face the rule PENTI.
The meat factory owner said coldly.
Fine, I accept.
But I need you to hand the letters in my hand to a real postman. Armin nodded upon hearing his words. The meat factory owner frowned, but then relaxed. Fine, compared to the remaining 1,000 plus ghost coins, this request is very cost effective. The 3 letters in Armin's hand disappeared. Looking again, those 3 letters were in the factory owner's hand.
Kid, your letters are in my hands now. If I don't deliver them for you,
you'll die here. The meat factory owner suddenly had a sinister smile.
Being played by a human kid
made him burn with rage. Since the hard way didn't work, he tried the soft way.
If the delivery task isn't completed,
this annoying human kid is dead.
If you want to complete the task, give the remaining ghost coins back to me.
The meat factory owner's sudden change of heart
didn't seem to cause Armin any panic. Instead, she said very calmly, go ahead.
Those 2 short words seemed to drain the factory owner's spirit. His face turned pale and blue, and finally, he snorted coldly. Everything has rules in the horror game. The ghosts in the game. Violating rules by stealing letters, causing players to fail the task, is clearly breaking the rules. So the meat factory owner didn't dare. Otherwise, it would be a breach of trade. He could only do as requested. At the end of the road appeared a postman. An old bicycle, a monotonous mailbag, a lifeless face. The badge of the ghost pot office was so conspicuous, enough for anyone present to know. He was the real postman.
Pleasure doing business.
Armin nodded to the meat factory owner. The owner handed the letters to the postman very reluctantly,
and then turned to leave. Wait, what about our letters? Those few players who didn't blindly enter the factory, after reacting, asked anxiously. What conspiracy? What schemes didn't matter? Anyway, they now knew the real way to deliver mail.
As long as the letters were sent, nothing else mattered. The ghost postman slowly turned his head.
Those eyes wrapped in whites stared at them lifelessly. These surviving players couldn't help but swallow, but they overcame their fear and stepped forward. Idiots.
Armin shook her head, preparing to leave. The meat factory owner stopped,
watching them with interest.
Payment. The ghost postman spat out 2 words stiffly, as heavy and thick as dull soy sauce. The few players looked at each other.
After a brief SOC, fierce light flashed in their eyes.
They rushed toward Armin in unison.
You deceived us. See the ghost coins with us.
Armin, either give us the money,
or go to hell.
The players rushed toward Armin with twisted faces.
The meat factory owner laughed loudly at this scene, and didn't want to leave anymore.
He wanted to watch with his own eyes how this hateful human kid was hoisted by his own petard. The meat factory owner was destined to be disappointed.
The players didn't last a single round. All of them were cleanly taken down by Armin. Either an arm was broken, or a leg was broken. The players howled on the ground, while screaming, cursing Armin with the most vicious language. After cursing, they wept, begging Armin for help. You aren't worth the value. Better to be eliminated early and get it over with.
Armin glanced at them faintly and walked away directly. The ghost postman who received the letters watched silently and suddenly, as if thinking of something, added coldly, if you don't have money, you can use organs instead. When ghost coins are insufficient, you can use parts of your body as a substitute. A light flashed in the player's eyes. We agree. We'll give you our fingers. They are too naive. Your hearts, the ghost postman said stiffly, while walking over step by step. Hearing this, the players turned pale instantly. Their lips trembled as they said, we won't send them anymore. Go away. The ghost postman ignored them. The meat factory owner was angry that he didn't see a good show, so he said mockingly, these guys are more stubborn than me. Since you agreed, the deal is already done. At Lao Wang's house, what stupid guys. Lao Wang watched the TV with great interest, as if he hadn't seen such an exciting program in a long time. He clicked his tongue in wonder. Ha ha ha. Zhang Papi must be furious this time, having 1,000 ghost coins snatched away. This kid is also ridiculously smart. To be able to think of all this, if he had thought wrong just once, he would have been dead. It's been so long, and only this guy has thought of it. This kid refers to Armin. Lao Wang had to admit, Armin was the only human who could make him admire her in a mail delivery task. Little one, what do you think of him? Hua Wujua's ink-eye eyes looked at Lao Wang, asking with interest. He wanted to see from a ghost's perspective. Players are smart, but also more delicious. Lao Wang swallowed subconsciously, a flash of greed appearing in his eyes. Then what do you think of me? Hua Wujua asked again. Lao Wang felt a bit awkward, not knowing Hua Wujua's intention. He observed his expression carefully, and said tentatively, you are the most powerful human I have ever seen. This sentence was smooth and standard, without any suspicion of excessive flattery, nor any derogatory meaning. Am I not delicious? Hua Wujua smiled. Mr. Postman, you're joking. You're not food, but I'm also a human. Lao Wang's mouth twitched wildly. Looking at this man in front of him, he felt like the other party was setting a trap. He didn't dare to speak nonsense anymore. Hua Wujua shook his head and smiled. No matter when or where, only the strong deserve to talk about status. The weak can only become fish on the chopping block. 3-letter task completed. Participating player 337. Surviving player 2. A new round of the horror game is about to begin. Random player selection in progress. Nightmares are still spreading. Horror is everywhere. Survivors are trembling. The souls of the unfortunate are wailing in the world. This time, there were only 2 places left on the entire blue star that were not disturbed by horror. Thank God. Thank Dr. Armin. When the stars shine, our new talent will return. If anyone can be used as a spiritual support, Dr. Armin is the spiritual support for every American. Move forward, our America will never fall. All of America was cheering. They made it to the end. As for the other major country not disturbed by horror, I'm raising the flag for Brother Hua. Let's see who dares to be his enemy. Brothers and sisters, shout our slogan. Brother Hua is invincible. Brother Hua is awesome. Go Brother Jew. Let's fly. What kind of bird horror rules? With Brother Jew here, all ghosts and monsters must give way. By the way, why didn't Brother Hua kill Armin too? Wouldn't that leave only our dragon country undisturbed on Blue Star? Idiot, even if America was pulled into the horror, what good would that do us? Is it not enough people dying? You're right, as long as the horror game doesn't end, we are still in danger. Sigh, although I really want to help. Except we're talking trash here. We can't do anything. Leave everything to fate. In the Dragon Country Supreme Strategic Meeting Room, the 5 dragon marshals gathered together. Everyone was silent. Even though they successfully stayed out of the first round, there was no joy on their faces. Instead, a trace of worry lingered between their brows. If this continues, other countries will eventually become uninhabited due to horror. This is not a good thing. There will only be fewer and fewer people on Blue Star. And other countries, because of the horror, cannot utilize their resources. It's like the devastation of nuclear weapons. But a bit better. At least Blue Star won't fall into collective destruction. The Dragon Country remains standing tall. Notify them to start. The Heavenly Court Project. The border still needs vigilance. Beware of the possibility of horror spreading. The Heavenly Court Project, in special times, obtains technology transfer through cost-free immigration to achieve a resource leap in a short time. They don't have to enter the countries where horror is spreading, but those who survive in those countries are dying to come to the Dragon Country. Resources, technology, talent. Countries that were strictly guarded before, under the devastation of horror, can hand over core secrets without hesitation just for a spot to enter the Dragon Country. Although there is a suspicion of taking advantage, trade is always decided by the strong. The horror game is a crisis, but it is also an opportunity. Dragon Country's resource collection in the last century has never been so smooth. Other countries used to block the Dragon Country's rise. Now that last restriction is gone. R&D department, act as soon as possible. Within a month, I want to see the results of lunar immigration. The 5 dragon marshals' thinking was very clear. They don't know when the horror game will be solved. Even if Hua Wujua has shown incomparable potential, they still need to prepare for immigration. Immigrate to the moon when necessary. And this requires an immeasurable amount of resources. Is the Dragon Country also racing against time? Everything depends on the new round of horror. Marshal Anai, the leader, turned his gaze back to the screen. Inside the horror world, 3 letters. The moment the task countdown hit 0, a white light enveloped Hua Wujua and Armin. When the white light faded, they appeared in a brand new horror venue. Caw, caw, a few noisy crow sounds rang out abruptly. Then they flapped their broken wings and left. Gray-black branches flew in the black fog-filled night sky. Under the black fog was a campus filled with ominous signs. Vaguely, one could hear shrill roars. Welcome to the horror game. Participating player 321, new task issued. Expose the lie. A campus built in a dense forest hides a huge lie. Find it. Task time, 72 hours. Survival reward, 5, death PE and TI, horror descent. Good luck to everyone. By the way, new faces have even less time. The horror will was not completely erased, but reshaped. Similar to a puppet, it still maintains its previous settings without knowing it. Hua Wujua did this to better understand the game. After all, he had never participated in the creation of a horror game. Many things still need experimentation. We meet again, Mr. Hua. Armin smiled slightly, still in that wide white robe. Her light blue pupils flashed with deep light, like sapphires in the night. Intriguing yet nerve-wracking. I told you, we'd meet again. Hua Wujua returned the smile, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. Initially, he was just interested in the game, but after joining as a player, he found this Armin fellow far more fascinating. Chaos
and reason, madness and obsession, calm and agitation. Only failure and death remain. To reach an alternative sublimation. My hometown is quite the hot commodity. Hua Wujue had long seen through Armin's secrets. Someone had planted the 12 cycles seed in him. Hua Wujue, ruler of nearly 100 universes, had encountered all sorts of cultivation paths. He learned of these 12 cycles in a twisted, chaotic realm. In that primordial universe, every living thing was tainted by madness and obsession. And the one who started it all was the Venerable One, tortured by that chaos. Even when delirious, after meeting Hua Wujue's underworld army, he still caused massive destruction. It took a great effort for him to finally kill him. At the very edge of the universe, that chaos almost spilled into his own realm. It was the only time in 100 Supreme Wars that he felt truly troubled. He had to seek help from the Heavenly Emperor. Annoying guy. Hua Wujue frowned, recalling that irreverent Heavenly Emperor. He disliked him, but had to admit, during that Supreme War, the Emperor provided significant help. Without him, he wouldn't have learned a shocking secret. The Venerable One, tortured by chaos just before he died, regained a moment of clarity. From his lips, Emperor Hua Wujue discovered a startling truth. The Venerable One wasn't always like that, and neither was his universe. Everything turned only after he touched the 12 cycles. 12 cycles, a forbidden codex. Chaos and reason, madness and obsession, calm and agitation, death and failure. That is the 12 cycles. The user must endure the torture of each stage, ensuring no other changes occur. The 12 cycles complement each other. When they unite in one body, nothing can stop him. Everything will become his kin. The Venerable One touched it, and gradually walked the path of chaos. It was during the madness and obsession stage that he underwent unpredictable changes, eventually dragging his whole universe to the grave. Before all this, the Venerable One was just an ordinary man. After taking that universe, Hua Wujue chose exile. This was different from supernatural erosion. It was another kind of strange pollution. He could easily handle it, but this pollution gave him a headache. Every second, it spread. Unless the whole universe was destroyed, it couldn't be cleared. It was too costly, not worth the effort. Exile became the only choice. As for the 12 cycles codex, Hua Wujue hadn't seen this secret before. It was found in the Venerable One's soul mark. Inside the mark, the codex was blurry. Hua Wujue wouldn't interfere with its gestation. Regarding this codex, he wanted to find the true creator. Armin is that shadow. Sadly, he doesn't know it himself. By the way, there are no strange signs during the gestation. Either unspeakable changes occur, granting insane power, or the gestation completes, turning everything into his own kin. As for things getting out of control, that's unnecessary. Hua Wujue has absolute confidence in controlling it. Bastard, you deceived us all. An angry voice rang out. Looking toward the sound, it was the new batch of participants. On everyone's face, besides terror, there was a deep sorrow. Outside, they watched Armin deceive them the whole time, causing their countries to be invaded. Regarding Armin, they wanted to eat his flesh, but there were fewer players this time than before. Some countries couldn't withstand the invasion and fell. Not a deception, strictly speaking. I just wanted to win the game. It was just for me. Armin calmly corrected them. Asshole, I'll kill you. A player rushed out from the crowd, eyes bloodshot, swinging a massive fist, aiming for Armin's face. Bang! The punch landed perfectly, not because the player was strong, but because Armin didn't dodge. I'm sorry. I understand how you feel, but we still need to cooperate. Armin wiped the corner of his mouth, saying it indifferently. Go to hell. Trying to trick us again? The player who threw the punch, eyes bloodshot, glared at him. He was a player from the Bear Country. During the invasion, his whole family died. For this culprit, he wanted Armin's country to taste the same pain. As he spoke, the Bear Country player lunged again, but this time, he failed. Bang! Like a ball being kicked away. The player was sent flying by a strange force. Armin slowly pulled his hand back. His mechanically modified body. The only benefit is being durable and strong. The angry players were furious, but realized they weren't in the same league as Armin. They had no chance for revenge, unless they finished the task and gained power. The game is like an unfair pay-to-win game. Those who finished the first round and gained abilities were on a completely different level than them. Emperor Hua Wujue. A player shouted his title. Mr. Hua, I beg you to kill this shameless bastard. We need to make him pay for his lies. The Bear Country player said with grief. All eyes focused on Hua Wujue. The new players only had the advantage of knowing the first round's info. They knew very well that the only one who could rival Armin was this mysterious man from the east. Only he had the power to kill Armin. He was someone even the ghosts feared. That was the consensus among the new players. Hua Wujue, facing their burning gazes, just looked at them coldly, with no intention of moving, nor any intention of replying. What? Are you going to side with this demon? He's the reason countless people died. Are you just like him, Hua Wujue? If you have any humanity left, you should kill this bastard. A Sakura Country player stepped forward. Compared to the last one, this new player had sharp eyes, carrying an elite, aggressive air. And in fact, he was right. Sakashima Enichi was a top law student, known as a gold medal lawyer. Hua Wujue laughed. Moral blackmail? Emperor, look at what you're saying. What are you laughing at? Did I hit a nerve? Sakashima's eyes were sharp, as if trying to pierce through him. As a top lawyer, he was best at manipulating public opinion. The first round of the game taught him one thing. Whoever leads the majority of players has a higher survival rate. I'm laughing at how your country always produces noisy insects. Hua Wujue said the last sentence, his tone suddenly chilling. And under the horrified gaze of everyone, Sakashima's limbs began to twist. The sound of bones snapping echoed endlessly, leaving the surrounding players in absolute terror. Players from all countries were lost in their anger at Armin. Ignoring Hua Wujue's temperament, trying to threaten him was a huge mistake. The Sakura Country still hadn't learned their lesson. Then, pay with your life. Sakura Country player dead. Random invasion triggered. The familiar broadcast rang in every player's ear, striking their hearts like a hammer, chilling them. Right, Hua Wujue isn't a saint either. He used 50 people as lab rats. He wouldn't care about these players' feelings at all. If Armin used schemes, While Wujue didn't even bother to scheme. If he wants you dead, you die. There's no room for reversal. The Sakura player never imagined While Wujue would kill him so decisively, without a moment's hesitation. According to his theory, even if While Wujue didn't agree, he would at least hesitate due to the negative impact. The new round is completely different from the first. Exposing lies is a group task. Everyone receives the same one, meaning they must act as a whole. As long as one person completes it, it means everyone passes. But can the game really be that simple? So every player's existence has a necessity. Unless absolutely necessary, you can't let players be eliminated. While Wujue would hesitate. He wouldn't dare kill himself. And his words could establish a central status among new players. At least that was Sakashima's deduction. While Wujue isn't a stupid man, he would definitely think of this. But he overlooked one thing. When someone has enough power to flip the table, others' existence isn't that important. As the price for his failed deduction, he died. The Sakura country must endure a new invasion. On top of the previous one, a new bride is added. A long, eerie, mournful sound echoed through the streets of Sakura country, and everyone who heard it would see a woman in red, wearing a red veil, with a pale, shriveled face lie a corpse. Players from all countries fell silent, no longer shouting about revenge against Armin. Alright, everyone, I know you all hate me deeply, but even so, we still need to cooperate to survive. I believe you all saw it. This task, exposing lies, is a group task. No matter how dissatisfied we are, no matter how much you hate me, it won't change that. Armin shook his head. Kill you, then we do the task. It doesn't matter, the British player sneered. Their previous player, King Arthur Renault, who was tricked to death by Armin. No matter what you say, we won't believe a word you say anymore. He voiced the consensus of all the new players. Armin's cold-bloodedness in the three-letter task was already etched into their bones. He is a demon. Are you really going to trust a demon? It doesn't matter, you'll come to me. Armin's light blue eyes were calm. What do you mean? A new player frowned, then seemed to realize something. His face turned deathly pale. He hurriedly opened his info panel. A glaring ghost cry erosion was displayed right there. The player's heart sank to the bottom. Right, they didn't gain abilities, nor did they have a way to isolate the ghost cry. At most 11 hours. They would die here. We'll lie longer without you. A player still acted tough, but they were already panicking, anxiously observing the surroundings. And this observation made things feel even harder. Besides the ghost school right in front of them, the surroundings were all black soil and towering, gray black twisted trees. A worn-out wooden sign was stuck in the nearby woods. Danger, keep out. Clearly, something terrible was hidden in the woods. Come on. Dr. Armin is so smart. Why would he need us? If he needs us, it's just to send us to our deaths. Players from all countries sneered and shook their heads. Even though they were panicked by the environment, they weren't willing to trust this demon again. Let's go, everyone, let's go in together. If you dare follow us, we'll definitely kill you. The Bear Country player stood out first, still glaring at Armin with murderous intent. Although he hated this guy, he couldn't do anything to him now. He had to find a way to complete the task quickly. He was also getting anxious. Armin and the others had 3 days. These new players didn't have the ability to survive the ghost cry erosion. To survive, they had to finish the task within 11 hours. This undoubtedly raised the difficulty to a new level. No need to refuse so quickly. I have a way to offset the erosion. I believe you'll be interested. Players from all countries hesitated and stopped. They looked at Armin. Armin reached out his hand, and a 100 denomination ghost coin appeared out of thin air. I'm trading for items to offset the ghost cry erosion. Ghost Bee buys cookies grade BX1, a snack babies lop to eat. If someone steals it, the Ghost Bee gets unhappy. Humans gain immunity to ghost cry. Suddenly, the player's eyes lit up, their breathing quickening slightly. As long as they got these cookies, they could extend the time to 72 hours, without worrying about dying in 11 hours. The temptation to lie, for these abducted players, was unimaginable. What kind of trick are you pulling now? The Bear Country player looked suspicious. He didn't believe Armin could be this kind. The guy sold over 200 players to the slaughterhouse. You can rest assured, I have no schemes. This money was meant for you all anyway. Armin shook his head, then decisively exchanged for over 300 cookies, giving them to the players for fry. The players, though hesitant, took the cookies. Even the Bear Country player, who had deep hatred, held back his anger, taking the cookies. Time is life in this place. Putting aside hatred for now is for better revenge later. After eating the cookies, they found the erosion on their panels was gone. While this made them breathe a sigh of relief, they felt deep anxiety inside. If you know someone has bad intentions, you aren't too panicked, because at least you know they're gone. But if someone seems to have no gone, that's when they have an even bigger one. Armin clearly belonged to the latter in their hearts. What is his gone? The players who received the fry gift fell silent, no longer feeling like blaming him, at least for the short term. Armin took this opportunity to continue his deduction. I believe you all noticed. The game site is inside a school. The Bear Country player snorted. They weren't blind. They could see such a big school. But is this school different from the ones we know? Armin threw the question to the crowd. A player answered gruffly. Once you think about it, everyone can see the problem. Shouldn't a school be in the city? Why is it surrounded by a forest? Exactly. That is the problem we need to solve. Why is there a school in the forest? And a high school at that? And why is our task to expose lies? Whose lies? And how do we expose them? Armin's words became sharp, his gaze sweeping over everyone. Players from all countries were stunned, their eyes filled with confusion and thought. We have too little information now. We need to investigate further to understand. Not everyone among the players was a fool. A refined-looking man shook his head. Exactly. So we still need to enter this school. Armin nodded. The players finally understood what trick Armin was playing. He still wanted them to scout the path. We won't need you even if we go in, unless you're willing to lead the way. The Bear Country player sneered. If the deaths in the first round were due to a lack of experience, then the players in this second round had significantly improved in psychological quality and adaptability. They wouldn't die as blindly as the last batch. I can do that. Armin nodded under their suspicious gazes. When will these stupid guys ever grow a brain? While Wujue didn't plan to watch this farce anymore, he glanced at the worn-out wooden sign, directly ignored the warning, and slowly stepped into the forest of gray-black trees. The players noticed this. A few players' eyes lit up, and they secretly